Maybe you're not a preacher. Maybe you're not a Sunday school teacher. But do something. Sometimes just testify on the side of the street. Speak to somebody. Go out and sing hymns while you're working among sinners. Talk to them about the Lord. That's what you do. That's all God requires. Do whatever's in your hand to do. Do it.
Africa, Brother Dan and them, Brother Dan, Brother Allen, Brother Frank, Brother Bernie Garcia Jr., they'd gone to Africa. And once again, they began to look for radio stations because this had produced so incredible in the Philippines. And so once again, took Brother Branham and broadcast and went to search out these different radio stations and the area that they covered in Durban. Mainly we were focused in Durban. And that's where Brother John had talked to Brother Billy Paul and said, Brother John, it came on his heart because Brother Branham wanted him to go to Africa. And Brother John called Brother Billy Paul and said, hey, if we go to Africa, where do you feel we should go? And Brother Billy Paul was, Durban, go to Durban. I mean, there was no question in Brother Billy Paul's mind, go to Durban. And so they did. And in the course of Durban, and then several different trips went by, and then we took a large group, 2 buses, but that was after this testimony I'm fixing to tell. There was Brother Ronnie, and I forgot Brother Ronnie's last name, and if I don't have the other brother's name, I'm sorry. But anyway, he had a son that was a doctor, Brother Reuben, and his other son was a mortician, and they were in the town of Matubatuba. Through the course of things, they had been out of church, and in the course of fellowshipping with Brother Ronnie, Brother Dan, and them, they had met them as their family and Brother Ronnie's wife, and then they met their sons, and they had married some ladies that were Hindu ladies, but yet in the course they came back to the Lord in the course of these fellowships and these missionary trips, and they gave their hearts back to the Lord, and they were serving the Lord. And he was the doctor, and he had a practice there in Matubatuba. And one day this gentleman came in, and his name was Budalezi. He was the chief of the Zulus there in that area, in KwaZulu-Natal. And he was sick. And he'd been to lots of doctors. Nobody could help him. Didn't know that he had AIDS, but was sick. And so he came there to the clinic. And he asked, can you do anything to help me? And so Brother Reuben had checked him all out and everything. He said, sir, there's nothing I can do for you. I can't do anything for you. And he said, well, I'm sorry, but there is one thing. And the man said, what is that? He said, I have a prayer cloth here by a prophet of God. He said, I can pray for you, but that's all I can do. Medically, I don't have anything to help you, but I can pray for you and lay this prayer cloth on you. And the guy said, okay. So Brother Reuben laid the prayer cloth on him, prayed for him. The guy left. 4 days later, the man shows up and he said, I'm perfectly well. What can I do for you? And Brother Reuben said, no, I didn't do that. That was God. You just thank God for that. You can't, no, nothing. I am not, that's between you and God. And so Reuben tells his dad, Ronnie tells Brother Daniel over across the ocean, they're in Africa, he calls Brother Dan, lets Brother Dan know, and Brother Dan says, you tell, Brother Ronnie, you tell your son to tell Budalezi that we want a piece of property where he lives, that we can build a church so his people can serve the God that healed him. So Chief Budalezi said, done. I mean, the message went back. Ronnie told Reuben told Budalezi. Budalezi said, done. What piece of property do you want? Brother Dan says, you tell him we want the highest point in that subdivision where he's at. And Budalezi said, done. Well, word came back to us like the mayor of Matubatuba, which is about 30 miles away, and he's kind of in control of that area. He said, no, Budalezi, you can't do that. You can't just give a piece of property to the Americans. It's Zulu land. And he said, well, I'm doing it. He healed me. God healed me. And I want a church there. So he said, well, you can't do that. There's a procedure. So word came back to us that, so all of a sudden people heard that you could get a piece of property amongst the Zulus. And everybody wanted a piece of property. The Catholics, all the denominations, any almost organization wanted a piece of property amongst the Zulus. And the mayor said, no, stop. We can't do this. Everybody has to put a portfolio together, come do an interview. We will interview everybody, and then we'll make a decision who gets a piece of property. So So Brother Dan calls me up and says, "Hey, John, we got to put a portfolio together." So everything that had been happening in the Philippines, from the emergency vehicles, from the radio broadcasts, from the dental, all these different things that had been going on that God had so blessed and we had done with the Philippines, we put together in a packet, and we mailed it to Brother Ronnie. Brother Ronnie's there waiting for the interview. Everybody that day gets interviewed. Brother Ronnie is the last one, goes in, he presents the portfolio. They ask the questions, and they said, "We have one final question. When can you start?" And Brother Ronnie said, "Right now." And they said, "It's yours." Everybody else said, "We'll have to get back to you 3 or 4 years, blah, blah, blah." He said, "You're the only one that said you can start right now." So Brother Ronnie calls Brother Dan. I said, "Brother Dan, it's ours, but we have to start right now." And Brother Dan said, "No problem, John." And so he got me and his brother John and John Allen and Stephen, and the 4 of us went to Africa, and we did a reconnoiter, if you will. We went to all the rental places, material places. We saw the property. We'd spent 2 weeks probably figuring out what we needed, how we could do it, how we could build it, what it was going to take, and where the equipment was, how much it was going to cost. But meanwhile, Steve Curtis was drawing the plans for it, because we had to have drawings, sent them to Ronnie. Ronnie had to take them in to the government and present them to the government that they were a qualified building. And all this was happening back and forth. And then then Brother Dan took 2 groups on the bus. But I think it was like 105 people, the musicians and whoever wanted to go on that trip. And that's when we had the singing at the racetrack. And we had the singing at the City Hall downtown Durban, and then we took the buses out to the property, and we dedicated the property. Everybody got out of the bus, and we had the quarter miler there, and everybody began to sing, and we had a shovel, and we broke ground, and people were coming. We were singing, and this music was just going out, and people were coming over the hills and out of the tree. I mean, they were coming from everywhere. Like, what is this going on? And here's these 2 huge, we'd call them Greyhound, but 2 huge buses with all these people on this piece of property. And they're like, what is going on? And this man comes up and he's asking Brother Calvin, what is this? And Brother Calvin begins to testify, that there is going to be a church here one day, and this is what God's doing. And they were just, it was like, why did it take so long? It was just, it was just incredible. We get back on the buses, come back home. Brother Dan says, put together a team. And so that was how we got the property given to us twice. When God gives you something, nobody taking it away. And it was so incredible, because they took it away and then God gave it back to us. And that was really a foundation for that part of it. So the next testimony is in building it and putting together a team of brothers, with Brother John so it's one of those. The property was sloped, as well as, so it had to be cut flat. We're talking 5 foot of overgrowth. We're talking snakes. We're talking the works in this thing. And John began to clean it off. We rented the backhoe, began to clean it off, and started. And so we had 4 weeks is what we had. And so what we tried to do was schedule the first team of guys, which was the concrete and foundation and block guys. Then some of them had to transition out, others would transition in, and then the next wave would transition were the lumber guys for the roof and the metal, and the block guys would go home. So we had people coming in, staging in, and this process that we kind of set up. That initial group was to break ground, get the foundation, lay the cornerstone, get the walls going. At the same token, we put in 2 outhouses with septic tanks. We built the baptistry. So literally the baptistry was built before any of the walls ever went up. And there sat this baptistry out in the middle of this church area. We had a tent sitting up, had services at night. Also, we ate there. But then we were baptizing people almost daily as people were coming to the tent meetings and giving their heart to the Lord and watching what was going on and this building going up. And it was hot. It was extremely hot. We had a tent there during the day, a little cover area, so the guys would stay hydrated. I told the guys, if you get hot, get out. We don't need anybody getting a heat stroke. We stay hydrated. And so that was the initial orders and in the heat of doing this. But as it turned out, it began to be fellowship sessions, and guys would go over there, get hot, they'd be standing over there, then 2, then 3, then 4, then pretty soon nobody's working, and everybody's getting a drink. And I'm thinking of our schedule, and I'm watching our guys, and it's all good because we're having a great time. But at the same token, everybody's kind of in the shade, and it's hot, and then back to work, and then back, and we had two brothers come from Johannesburg, and Brother Stanley, and then there was, I'm trying to think of the other brother's name. They called him the Prince of Preachers, and just both of them just great men. They heard what was going on with the Zulus. They wanted to be a part, and here we are. What can we do? And the one brother, of course, they were older brothers, and I didn't want to put them on a shovel or something like that. But I said, Brother Stanley, if you would make sure that people have water, I said that would really, really help me. And the other brother, he found a place with, and I don't know if it was over with cement or where it was at, but I was focused on, the building going up. The walls had to go like an extra a couple feet higher, just different things. But Brother Stanley, so the very first time he took water around to everybody. Are you thirsty? Would you like water? And so he got that done. He was over at the cement mixer. He wanted to shovel sand, wanted to shovel cement and gravel, and I'm looking around. The guys running to the white tent again, and everybody's getting in the shade and drinking. And I'm like, Brother Stanley, I thought you were giving them water. He said, well, Brother John, I asked them, and they said they weren't thirsty. So I'm doing this. And I said, well, Brother Stanley, I need you to make sure they have water. Okay, and so he'd ask him, and I'd look over, and he'd be doing something else. I'm just like, okay. So the next day I went over with him, Brother Stanley, I need you to make sure the guys have water, they're hydrated. So his answer to that on this next day was, he got like 10 cups, and there was a wall there, and the water jugs were there, and he filled all 10 cups full of water, and he sat them all there on the wall, and I look around, and he's over there at the cement mixer, and I look at the water, and there's all these glasses, and they're covered in dust from the job site dust, and it's just wafting over these glasses of water. Of course, they're hot now. They've been sitting in the sun, and they're dirty. And I'm just like, I go over and get them. I'm a little frustrated, and I'm throwing the water out. And Brother Stanley, he's looking at me like, uh-oh. And I'm throwing the water on the ground, and I'm trying to clean and rinse the cups, and I'm just like, he comes over, and Brother John, I just thought if it was out there, they could get it. That they could do it. They could just go by and get a glass. I said, I understand your thinking, Brother Stanley. I do. But you don't understand mine. I don't want them off the line. I don't want them to quit working. I need you to go around and ask everybody, and then I need you to do it again and again and again. And I need you to do this all day. Can you do that? He said, I can do that, Brother John. I said, that's all I'm asking, Brother Stanley. And from that moment, that church flew up. Nobody got off the line. Nobody was over there under the shade. Brother Stanley, he'd walk around. And he got it. And he wasn't a brick mason, but he made every brick mason better. He wasn't a cement guy, but he made every cement guy better. Everybody he touched on that job site, he made them better. Because they could do their job. They could do their post of duty. They could lay that cement and not have to wander off to get water and come back. He was right there. It was incredible to watch. And so then as the church got built and the block guys went and the lumber guys, well, the trusses showed up. They're supposed to be a one-piece truss. We're talking a 60-foot span. This church was 60 foot by 120, biggest church we'd ever built overseas. And the truss company had decided to cut costs and use a different wood. Well, the government caught them, and they said, if you're going to use that wood, then you have to double them. And because they couldn't carry 60-foot trusses on a truck, they had to do them in halves. So you had 4 pieces to make one truss, and we had to marry them, and then marry them together with steel plates and bolts. And we had to do this 10 feet in the air, had to marry them down here on the ground in piles, bring up 10 feet in the air and on scaffold, and then marry them together and then stand them up. Well, they're 60 foot long. They were like a giant noodle. And so you had to hold them up and then get bracing and everything involved and work our way off the back wall. Each one had to be braced and bracketed, and worked our way across this whole. And I don't have the final picture, but I have this picture of Brother Stanley, and he had 2 glasses in each hand, and he's looking and he's trying to figure out how to get water to the guys on the wall. And he's looking at them like, okay. And he put them all down, and he left, and he came back, and he had about a 6-foot stick with a fork in it. And he began to put these glasses in his fork and hand the water up to the guys on the roof, on the top of the wall. And he would walk around getting water, and nobody ever came down, and that roof just flew. And this testimony has never left me, because I saw the power of one man that made everybody better around him. And I thought, God, if we could make people better around us, how much better is that? And then you think of of Paul, and he says that helps in governments. And helps, I mean, when was the last time we heard a message preached on helps? And here Stanley was helping every man on that site be better. I don't want to leave out the sisters. They were cooking nonstop day and night. They were washing clothes nonstop. Those wash machines and dryers never shut off. They were bringing us meals at the work site, and we'd have lunches there. They'd have all the food lined up, and then they'd load everything up, go back. At night, we'd come in, they'd have our clothes washed for the next day, dry in, and supper, and we'd have all that. Everybody'd start the next morning before daylight. And I don't know how many gals that were there, how many sisters that were there that, they did their part. It wasn't just the brothers, it wasn't just Stanley, but each part, it's like, well, whatever you find in your hand to do it. And they did. I mean, and we had one day particular where all the gals got to put a block on the front wall. We had all the walls done, and then there was the front wall by the front door. One of the testimonies while we were there, when the two buses went and we were doing the singing at the racetrack and then at the City Hall in Durban, we were set up there at the City Hall and singing, and different guys were out testifying. But there was a girl named Andale, and she was down at the ocean, and she was fixing to commit suicide, and she was fixing to throw herself into the ocean, and she heard a voice, and just, don't you know, everything is going to be all right. And she thought everything's going to be all right. And so she came back out of the ocean, she's walking up into town, and then she hears this music. And then she hears these girls singing, and it was the girls from Alaska, and they were singing the song, Don't You Know, Everything's Going to Be All Right. And she heard the words to that song. She came over, and she attached herself to us. I mean, she who are you people? And, I have to be with you. You don't understand. I have to be with you. And so Brother Allen got me, and he said, we'll talk to her and just see. And so I'm thinking, we don't know this girl. I mean, and she's got pants on. She's not dressed very nice. And I said, well, Andale, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad, we can do whatever to help you. She goes, no, I have to go with you. You don't understand. I have to go with you. So I said, I got Sister Jackie. I said, Sister Jackie, would you talk with her? Maybe you can take her over here to the store while we're out here singing and see if you can get her some decent clothes to wear. And so she got Andale. Andale went with her. They went to the store because she lived in the townships and it was way too far away to go get clothes and come back. Like I said, she wasn't dressed very good. But she was not leaving us. And so they went in, they got her new wardrobe. She rode with us on the bus. She went everywhere we went. She went to church services. And she gave her heart to the Lord, and we baptized her, and it's one of the most incredible pictures, just tears streaming down her face, and just incredible. So, quick story about Andale. But here the gals from Alaska were there singing, and God so just dynamically put that together. On one of the trips, Brother Frank and I think Brother Gabe was with him, and I don't know the other brothers, but they had gone to Uganda, to Kampala, and then some of the other, Moroto, some of the places that were around there. There was a couple of testimonies after the first trip. I think Brother Tom had been there and a bunch of brothers really. And they said, what can we do to help you? That kind of question comes up. What can we do to help you? Whether it's Bibles, whatever it might be. And they said, bicycles. We said, bicycles? How about motorcycles? They said, no, we couldn't afford the gas to put in them, or they get stolen. And they said, bicycles. We said, okay. So Brother Dan and the brothers came back and they told the churches, and they said, bicycles. We're going to try to buy 100 bicycles. And so people were doing fundraisers. And, this is another thing that kind of comes up. I'm telling stuff, but I'm leaving so many other people out I haven't told. But like Sister Elizabeth Reinertz and the gals in Idaho and Illinois and Alaska, they would do fundraisers, they would do car washes, they would do bake sales, they would do gift wrapping, they would do flowers. I mean, and then the children's offerings, and everybody. How do I say that? Everybody believes it. It's not just a man deal. It's just not a pastor or preacher deal. Everybody says, okay, I can be a part of this. Oh, hey, I can do that. I can go raise money. I can. And so 2 of the girls from the church here, Adrian and Natanya, I don't know how much savings they had, what they had, but it was enough to buy 100 bicycles, and they gave all their money to buy these bicycles. The brothers went back on the next trip, and they went and they bought 100 bicycles, took it up there to the brothers. I guess they had to assemble them. They had a big truck they had to buy them in, and took them up there and gave them to them. And literally, there were brothers that were wearing the tires off and having to buy new tires to put on their bikes because they were traveling so many miles. They could go further and spread the gospel further just because they had bicycles now. And they were able to give, I think they gave a few out the first time, but they were able to come back and give 100. And so just a testimony of 2 young ladies here that's, hey, we can do this. And they did. But anyway, Brother Frank back at Uganda, they'd been there on a trip, and literally they were leaving to come home. And a pastor there, this very tall man, a pastor there shows up, and of course, I'm not there, I'm just relaying the testimony. But he shows up and he begins to talk to the brothers and Brother Frank, and my boy's in the hospital, he's sick, would you come pray for him? And Brother Frank said, brother, we're headed to the airport, we have plane tickets, we're going back home. And, my boy's sick and he's in the hospital. And Brother Frank reaches in his pocket. And the man got a little irritated with Brother Frank. I don't want your money. And Brother Frank said, I wasn't going to give you any money. And he pulls his hand out of his pocket with a prayer cloth. He said, this is a prayer cloth that Brother Branham prayed over, that a man of God prayed over. He said, I want you to take it and I want you to lay it on your little boy and you pray for him. Oh. He kind of, okay, took it. And Brother Frank, Brother Gabe, whoever was with him, they got in the cars and they went to the airport. That was it. The man gets on the bus to go back home, and his wife calls him on the phone and says, where are you at? Are the men of God coming? He said, no, they're not coming. Where are you at? I'm on the bus. He said, the doctor called, our little boy has died. So he goes home, gets his wife. They go to the hospital, and she's asking him, what did the man of God say? Why didn't they come? He goes, they were leaving. They were flying away today. Well, what did they say? Did they say anything? He goes, yes, they gave me a prayer cloth, and they said, lay this on your little boy and pray for him. And to me, this is the coolest answer. I mean, here's a woman that's lost her child, and she says, don't you think we should do what the man of God said do? And I thought, that girl. I mean, they could have been in despair. They could have just washed themselves, just gotten mad. So many things could happen in that moment. And here her response is, so they go to the hospital, the little boy, they've laid him in a room. He's been dead over half an hour. And they go in the room, and they lay the prayer cloth on the little boy, and they begin to pray. And the little boy sits up and sneezes and says, I'm thirsty. Well, of course, rejoicing, right? But when Brother Ron and Brother Frank went back on the next trip, he came with the little boy to meet him and see Brother Frank. It was there in Lake Cebu in the Philippines, and there was a little boy there, and I don't know who his dad was, I'm sorry, but his feet were horribly infected. He's got scabs all over them, open wounds, sores over them. The picture, me saying it doesn't do justice to the picture, how badly his feet, from his toes to just above his ankles, are just a mass of scabs and wounds and open sores and whatever he's gotten into or what's happened to him. And I showed it to some nurses, and they asked me if he lost his feet, and I said no. And so Brother Don Fiore and Brother John Bunk had gone, and they were there having services, and they came and got him and said, would you come and pray for our little boy? His feet are very bad. And they said, yeah. So they went up into the village, and they went to the house, went inside the house, and here's the little boy on a mat. And they had a word of prayer, laid a prayer cloth on him, prayed for him, and they left and went back to church. And that was Saturday night. Sunday morning, they're standing outside. Brother Don's praying about, what to pray over or what to preach over. and he's praying, and he sees this lady and this little boy come walking down the hill down to the church, and he recognizes the lady but not the boy. But he sees the lady, and he goes up to her. He goes, "Oh," he said, "how's your little boy? You know, how's he doing?" And she looked at him like, "Well, this is him right here, and he has sandals on and perfectly clear pink skin, not a scab anywhere. He's wearing sandals on the same feet." Incredible testimony. It rocketed through the village and the church, and it's still a testimony to this day. I've posted it online a couple times, and the response, "Oh, that's Tony," or whatever his name was. That's, and they all know who he is and the story and his feet, and they're just, it's like sometimes they forget, and then their minds get refreshed of what God did that day, but the next day was just pristine, clear feet, and with sandals on. So, and in finishing up, just the how do you finish? I don't guess we'll ever finish, right? Not till we die and hand it off to the next generation, and the next generation. It's not a one-man show. I think that's probably one of the things that might be missing a little bit. Now that we say that, I think one of the greatest miracles that I think I've seen in my lifetime is that a God-called man, a Timothy to the prophet of God, would take his time to help train young men for that next generation. That would take, this idea of a one-man show, I've got a calling, I'm the man, and step to the side and open his pulpit and give his life to help train young men so that after he was gone, the work could continue. And I think how most ministries are about themselves and my ministry, rather than making other people better. And it kind of comes back into that, to make other people better, and then what is our responsibility? But to make that next generation better, to take young men and young people that would like to go, that feel a calling to go, and to take those that want to go and take them with us and allow them to see and have an opportunity to serve people and to meet God's people overseas. And then, because not knowing when our day is over, maybe my day is over tomorrow. I may have done everything God's called me to do, and it may be my time will be over, and it'll be this next generation. When does it come my time to step aside? And that's hard to say, because I want to go. I don't want to quit. There's no quit. And this isn't me. This is all of us. This is the Franks and Rons and Marks, and this is all of us. Dan, and so. Brother Dan's leaving for Colombia. Brother Dan's been doing just a lot of work there in Colombia, helping. And I think, and it's part of Brother John's ministry, part of each of us, we go there and we preach, but it's not about that. It's about helping the pastors to be better pastors, to be able to help their people and to go out. It's like Brother Branham said, they can reach their people better than we can. They can go places that we can't go. They can eat food that we can't eat. And by making them better, we step aside and they continue, just like Mindanao, and they're out in the jungles. They said, "John, we can't take you. We're not taking you to these places. You're not going. These are too dangerous." But yet they can go, and they are going, and they're on muddy dirt trails. Ecuador, Peru, Brother Ron's going back. There isn't a stopping point. It's just more of a handoff transition point. Maybe I'm not healthy enough to go. Maybe but here, what can I do to help you? What can I do to help these young men? And then it does come back. Literally, if you can't go, send somebody. If you can't send somebody, you can pray for them. So, every trip, Brother Mark just came back, but I went with him on that trip. I was at home praying for him. Brother Josh went to Colombia. I was with him on that trip. Maybe not there physically, but this is the part that we can pray. And I think that's probably every missionary's. If you ask him, what can we do? It's number one, it's pray. Believe in the power of prayer. Believe in who you are as a son or daughter of God, and that you have a contact with Almighty God, your Father. He said, "Pray ye the Lord of the harvest to send laborers into the harvest." And he was the Lord of the harvest, standing there telling them, "You ask me to send laborers into the harvest because the fields are ripe." You read it, you kind of pass over it in Scripture almost, but when you hear Brother Branham preach it and bring it to life, you're just like, oh my goodness. He wants us to be a part. We're a co-worker with him, and he doesn't do anything without us. We are his hands, his feet, his eyes, His legs. We are His borrowed vessel, if you will, that goes into all the world and preaches the gospel. And that doesn't add to it. It doesn't take from it. We don't have a message of our own. We say what Brother Branham said, that church age messenger. I don't have a message of my own. I don't have a ministry of my own. If I do anything, it's to say only and all what that prophet messenger said, and to share that so that people will know what God did in our day, and that message is to restore a bride to Jesus Christ, to have a bride ready for a rapture. And what greater responsibility, what greater opportunity could we have than that? And let alone if it comes our time to step aside and to help other young men be better.
When you're receive the Holy Spirit by believing on Jesus Christ and receiving the Holy Spirit, then you're just a candidate to go to work for God. Then go to yielding your members to Him. See what He'd have you to do. He might have you to preach, sing, testify, pass out tracts, talk to people, bring someone to church. All kinds of gifts and helps that's in the body of Christ. Some are called for one thing, some another. But no matter what you've got, how little it is, you say, well, Brother Branham, the only thing I can do, I might talk to some people. Well, that might not be very much to you, but put it in the hands of Jesus and see what He'll do with it. Like the little fishes that was in the little boy's hands. He could only feed him. But when he put it in Jesus' hand, it fed 5,000. So it will be with you. Put what you have in His hand.